From KCCI 8 News, this is a special presentation. Coffee with the Candidates.
Hello and welcome to our series, Coffee with the Candidates. I'm Amanda Rooker, and today we're talking with Mike Pence. We're getting to know presidential candidates, going to towns all across the state so that we can sit down with Iowa voters and have them ask about the issues they care about. Today, we're in Polk City, in Polk County. 31% of active voters in Polk County are Republican. In 2016, 40% of voters in Polk County cast their ballots for Donald Trump. In 2020, 41% voted for Trump. We'll sit down with 3 undecided Republicans from Polk City. They'll ask the former vice president about the issues that matter to them. But first, let's take a look at Pence's background. Mike Pence served as the 48th Vice President of the United States in the Trump administration. Prior to that, he spent 12 years serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. He was then elected governor of Indiana. I'm here with former Vice President Mike Pence. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You bet, Amanda. Good to be with you.
Well, I have a few questions for you to start. Number one, you have mentioned you'd like to sign a federal abortion ban into law. If you were president, how would you get enough votes in Congress to get that ban to your desk?
Well, first off, Amanda, people that know me well know I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. I've been a champion of the cause of life throughout my career in the Congress as governor, and I couldn't be more proud to have been part of the administration that appointed 3 of the justices that gave America a new beginning for life. And I recognize that while most of the progress will be made at the state level, like the strong pro-life bill that passed here in Iowa and back home in Indiana, I do believe the time has come for a minimum national standard that says that we're going to limit or ban abortions after a child is capable of pain. Now, how we get that done, to answer your question, is I think first you go to the American people before you go to the Congress. And one survey after another shows that 7 out of 10 Americans believe that we ought to strictly limit or even ban abortions after that unborn child is capable of experiencing pain, somewhere around 15 weeks, according to most doctors. I think we go to the American people, then we go to the Congress, we go with principle and we go with compassion. We respect the fact that states around the country will continue to advance stronger pro-life laws, others less so, but I do believe the time has come for a minimum national standard, and if I'm president, we'll champion that.
And you have talked publicly, comparatively to some of your GOP opponents, about your stance on abortion, about your faith, about LGBTQ issues. If you were the nominee, how would you win over independents who may see your stance as too socially conservative for a president?
Well, I believe in the Constitution of the United States and the First Amendment. The freedom of religion is really, in a very real sense, our first freedom. But it also guarantees that people have every right in this country to believe whatever they want to believe or believe nothing at all. It says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion, but also no law prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So I'll be a champion of the faith traditions or the rights of conscience of every American, but at the same time, people will always know where I stand. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and I'll carry those values, even as I respect the views and values of every American, into the White House.
Another thing that you've talked a lot about on the campaign trail is the war in Ukraine, the war with Russia, and you've mentioned that you would like to continue sending aid to Ukraine. What do you say to Americans that feel worried that that takes away from domestic issues?
Amanda, I believe anyone that says that we can't secure our border, bring law and order to our cities, revive our economy, and still be leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth. We can do both with the right leadership, and I believe that we need leadership in the White House and in the Republican Party that is committed to doing both. Look, our first priority would be to secure the southern border of the United States, end Joe Biden's war on energy, restore law and order in our cities, and get this economy moving again and tackle inflation. But I also believe it's essential that we continue, as the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy, to give the Ukrainian military what they need so their soldiers can fight defeat and repel the Russian invasion, because I think if Vladimir Putin overruns Ukraine, Amanda, I have no doubt that the day will come when he crosses the border of a NATO country where we would be required to send our soldiers to go and fight. So I think we ought to stand by that old American idea that if you're willing to fight our enemies with your soldiers, we'll give you the means to fight them there so we don't have to fight them. And that's what our national interest is in Ukraine.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to take it up a notch. Now we're going to have some undecided Republicans ask you some questions over a cup of coffee. We'll be right back.
Coffee with the Candidates continues right now.
Our conversation with Republican presidential candidate Mike Pence continues at Rising Sun Cafe in Polk City.
Hi, how are you?
We're joined by 3 undecided Iowa Republicans from right here in Polk County. Welcome back to our series Coffee with the Candidates. We're here today with former Vice President Mike Pence. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be with you and all these wonderful people here.
Yeah, and we're with some
Great to be back
Republicans
in Iowa, too.
from Polk City. And all 3 of you are unsure who you're going to caucus for in January. And all 3 of you come here to Rising Sun Cafe every Friday and you talk about politics. You're all undecided Republicans, and you now can bring those questions to former Vice President, Mr. Mike Pence.
Sounds great.
Great.
Thank you.
We'll have you guys ask some questions. I may jump in with a follow-up or 2. We'll start with you, Luann. All 3 of you are mothers and grandmothers, but Luann, you also ran your own home daycare. You worked as a paraeducator, but you have a question about the southern border.
Yes, I do. We know our southern border is a mess.
It is.
What would you do about our southern border?
Well, Luann, let's begin with a principle. A nation without borders is not a nation.
Well, that's true.
When we came into office in 2017, we committed to secure the southern border of the United States, but it took a few years to do it. Frankly, we secured funding to build hundreds of miles of border wall, but it wasn't just the border wall. I actually was involved in negotiations with the leadership in Mexico for what became the Remain in Mexico policy, because part of what we saw happening at the border was that people were largely being transported to the border by the cartels, which are now transporting millions of people to the southern border. I think it's the largest example of human trafficking in history. And then they instruct people on how you apply for asylum. You read a particular piece of paper that says you're experiencing certain conditions in your home country. Under the old system that we inherited, a person would apply for asylum in the United States. They'd be given a hearing in maybe a year and a half. And then almost invariably 98% of the people would never show up for their hearing. They would disappear into the United States. And so it was not just illegal immigration, people jumping the border, but also asylum abuse that facilitated the border crisis. We ended that with the Remain in Mexico policy. When the pandemic struck, we implemented Title 42 that allowed us to remove people out of the country immediately that were apprehended at the border. The combination of those things reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And it will again. But that really is just the beginning from my perspective. I mean, if I'm President of the United States, we'll put back into effect all the things that President Joe Biden has undone. I mean, he set aside Remain in Mexico, Title 42. He stopped construction on the wall on day 1. We'll put all that back into effect. But the other piece is, I think the time has come for us to have a merit-based immigration system. And if I'm President of the United States, I'm going to take my experience not only in the White House, but also as a leader in the Congress and as a governor, and I'm going to see if we can come together, not with amnesty, but creating a system for people in the future to apply legally to come into the country. But it'll all be grounded in what are the needs here in Iowa? What are the needs back in Indiana where I live? What are the needs across the country? And then allowing people to come into the country who meet the needs of the United States, rather than the system that we have today that's deeply broken and largely based on family associations and doesn't really focus on the needs of the country. So border security, and then ultimately reforming the immigration system in a way that puts the interest of the American people, the interest of our economy first.
Our next question is going to be from Connie. And Connie spent 25 years working at a bank in town. She has a question for you about government in general.
How can you bring back respect to the branches? They're arguing all the time. They just can't get along. And maybe as you were vice president, maybe you have an insight on how to bring them together that we can respect them again.
Well, there's a couple things that we need to do. Look, people have lost confidence in equal treatment under the law in the Justice Department, and I was on the Judiciary Committee for more than a decade during my years in the Congress. I know how the Justice Department is supposed to work, and that's why day one I'm going to clean house the whole top floor of the Justice Department, and you restore confidence in the public by appointing men and women to all of those top positions that are seen on both sides of the aisle as people of integrity. People will apply the law without fear or favor. They're out there. I promise you. You could, not just an Attorney General and an FBI Director, but really the staff that they would then appoint around them, all the senior team. And so there's that element of it, is that there are agencies of the government that we need to restore public confidence in. But I take your question, Connie, as even more broad than that, and that is that we're living in a time where our politics is more divided than ever before. But I'm not convinced the American people are as divided as our politics. I mean, I moved home to Indiana after I left the White House as your vice president. And I love to tell people, you get 15 miles out of Washington, D.C., people in this country actually get along pretty well most days, right? It's just in government we've lost the capacity in many respects to talk to one another and deal with some of these long-term problems that our country is facing, both at home and abroad. Crime in our cities, crisis at our southern border, an economy that's failing American families, cost of living on the rise, as well as the widening challenges around the world that we face. Those things are going to take the kind of leadership that has at least the capacity to bring us together. And I think that all begins with civility. I really do. You know, I tell people I'm a conservative, but I'm not in a bad mood about it. And people that have known me over the last 20 years of my public service know that I've always tried to live out my Christian faith in the respect I treat others the way I want to be treated, which is I love a good debate. You might have seen that presidential debate we had a couple weeks ago. I like to mix it up. But I think you can argue on the issues without being personal. And I think Washington has lost that habit that the American people have. I mean, the American people know how to disagree without being disagreeable with one another. And so I think that democracy depends on heavy doses of civility. And if I'm President of the United States, I promise you, I'm going to fight hard for the agenda that I'm elected to advance, make America strong and prosperous and protect our liberties and our values. But I'm going to do so in a way that I hope creates an environment where we might be able to identify common ground. Not compromise so much as true common ground that can improve the lives of the American people and improve the security of our country and also the vitality of our liberties and our values.
Our next question is going to be from Mary, and I mentioned all three of you are mothers and grandmothers. All three of you have an interest in little ones, but Mary is a retired teacher. She has a question for you about education.
Okay, Vice President Pence, the scores on our students' tests continue to go down. What is your plan to turn our current trend in education around?
Well, Mary, first let me thank you for your career as a school teacher.
Thank you.
I've been married 38 years to an elementary school teacher. And she'll tell you that I've been her toughest student all those years. Karen did 15 years in public school, elementary, and 15 years in a private Christian school. So I really admire your career, and I'm grateful for you. Look, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get education out of Washington, D.C. Right. A lot of people don't know the Federal Department of Education was one of President Jimmy Carter's bad ideas. I mean, I'm someone, maybe it's because I'm married to a teacher, maybe it's because I've been a governor. I believe education is a state and local function. So if I'm President of the United States, I'm going to shut down the Federal Department of Education and send all those resources back to Iowa, to Indiana, and every state in the country to be able to innovate. Pay teachers more, okay? Create more educational opportunities and choices for families, just like you've done here in Iowa. I really believe that the best way forward in education is to allow states, and I'm a great champion of parental school choice. I'm grateful for what Governor Kim Reynolds has done here and the legislature's done. Indiana recently expanded what had been one of the largest school choice programs in the country. I doubled it when I was governor. I think competition makes everybody better. And so having schools have to compete for the best teachers, compete for the students, I think is a pathway forward. But the principle, first and foremost, begins with we ought to let states conduct education and get out of all the federal micromanagement that happens. And I really do believe that then you'll see those models, as you're already seeing, those models of education excellence emerge around the country. Our founders really had it right. This system is called federalism, of having the states be laboratories of innovation and democracy. And when you see one model succeeding in one state, then it's replicated in another. And so for me, it begins with shutting down the Federal Department of Education, sending those resources back to the states, encouraging the states to give parents more choices, public, private, parochial, homeschool, and I have every confidence that you empower parents and you empower states to innovate. We'll turn education around in this country quicker than you could possibly imagine.
Thank you.
Shifting gears a little bit to talk about energy. We're in Iowa, where ethanol and renewable fuels are very important to so many people here. You know, Luann has a question about energy.
How would you deal with the fact that we are no longer producing our own energy needs and buying it from other countries?
Luann, I think one of the great accomplishments of the Trump-Pence administration was we achieved energy independence for the first time in 75 years. But we did it through an all-of-the-above energy strategy. Well, oil and coal and natural gas, wind and solar, renewables, biofuels, ethanol. We said yes to everything, and we opened up federal lands to responsible development. We opened up vast areas of Alaska for energy development. Joe Biden came in as president and literally declared a war on energy in this country. Of course, it's no real surprise. When he was running for president, he said that he was going to, quote, end fossil fuels. Now, it's incomprehensible that he would have advocated for that, and also it has no basis in reality. I mean, even his own administration projects literally over the next 50 years that our requirement for fossil fuels is going to continue to grow, both in our economy and the global economy. So the antidote is to have an administration that ends the war on energy. Joe Biden came in and shut down the Keystone and Dakota pipelines. Not only cost thousands of jobs, but it impacted the ability of energy development to be able to move energy resources around the country, open up those federal lands. I don't know if you saw last week, the administration actually announced they were offlining vast areas of Alaska again. All the while, we're going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia and going hat in hand to Venezuela. But we won't let people pump oil out of and natural gas out of the Permian Basin or out of Alaska or North Dakota. So for me, it's about developing the resources of our land in a responsible way, which we can do with new technologies, but my goal is not just to achieve energy independence again. I think we do that pretty quickly. I want to achieve the energy dominance that we had up until 2006. We were the #1 producer of energy in the world until 2006. We lost it then. I've got a plan at MikePence2024.com you can read that says, here are the steps that we can take that in the next 10 years or so, we can reclaim our title as the #1 producer of energy in the world. I think that contributes to our economy, but it also contributes to our national security, is that we're not looking to the world, and particularly to volatile parts of the world for our energy needs. But bottom line, all of the above energy, and the war on energy, and not only will our energy economy come back, Luann, but energy powers our economy as a whole, and our economy will come roaring back too.
Thank you.
Now, we talked a lot about energy there. You mentioned fossil fuels. We've been talking a lot lately about climate change. It came up at the debate briefly as well. Connie has a question for you about climate change.
We know climate change is real. We can't have only a few nations working together. We can how can we get other countries to work with us?
Well, I want to agree with you. The climate is changing. You're right. Over the next century, we'll see very small changes. If the experts are right, you've seen those trends. There's a lot of climate change alarmism out there. Like once again, you see the evening news after the Hurricane Idalia struck Florida, and our hearts went out to all the families impacted there. Truth is, there aren't any more hurricanes today than there were 100 years ago. So, but the national media, not your station certainly, but so we got to put aside the alarmism, and we just have to say, how do we deal with it? First and foremost, I would say, in terms of our role in that, we got out of the Paris Climate Accord because it was one of those international deals where the American people were all of a sudden under very strict requirements and goals for reducing CO2 emissions. And we said China can get around to it in about 10 years, India can get around to it in about 10 years. That's not right. It's not fair to American consumers and to our country. So we got out of the Paris Climate Accord. But what you don't know, during our administration, we exceeded the goals of the Paris Climate Accord for reducing CO2 emissions. How did we do that? American innovation. The advent of natural gas, a natural gas boom in the country. Fracking played a tremendous role in that, accessing cleaner energy. And so, to me, the pathway forward is not government mandates, not a Green New Deal, not forcing people to buy electric cars that cost $20,000 a year more, but rather it's promoting the kind of innovation that will develop cleaner energy, and then frankly, looking at our trading partners around the world and saying to them, we're not mandates, we're not coming at you with the global Green New Deal, we're not doing that, but we want to have the ability as Americans to help you develop clean energy technology in your countries. That'll support American jobs and also promote a cleaner environment overall. But it's a choice between mandates and innovation, and I'm somebody that believes that innovation is a pathway forward, not the mandates of the Green New Deal or Joe Biden's relentless effort to drive us away from traditional sources of energy.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk now with Luann. She has a question for you, a long question perhaps, on healthcare.
Who is in charge of our health insurance? The insurance companies or America, we the people? I'm 71, I'm on Medicare, I have a supplement. Help me to understand why my Medicare health insurance is not the same as yours or anybody of our leaders in office, and how is this the best we can do in 2023 for cost, accessibility, and treatment?
I say with great humility, I'm running for president because I think the country's in a lot of trouble, and I actually believe I'm the most qualified, the most experienced, and the most tested traditional conservative running for office. And when I say qualified, I mean it wasn't just that I was your vice president. It was that I was a governor who advanced real innovation, groundbreaking innovation in healthcare in the state of Indiana. I was also there in the Congress. I was a leader in Congress when they foisted Obamacare on us. Remember, they told us if you like your doctor, you can keep them. They told you your insurance premiums would go down. I'm not talking about Medicare, but for every other American, insurance premiums have about doubled, right? And while we got rid of the tax mandate, another one of those areas that I'm going to undo and block grant back to the states is every penny associated with Obamacare, and allow states to innovate. So two pieces to answer to your question. One is with regard to health insurance. I'm just a real believer in what's called health savings accounts, consumer-directed health care. I think we ought to encourage portability in health insurance for working Americans so that you get your health insurance with one employer, but you go to another, you ought to be able to take that health insurance policy with you. That's portability. I also like the idea of people making a first dollar investment into a savings account that then if they don't have any health care costs that year, that actually rolls into actual savings. It creates an incentive for wellness. You know, the best health care plan in America is good health, right?
True.
You know what?
Right.
I'm
So-
going to actually stop you there because that is all the time that we have for television. But we do have an extended conversation, so we may be talking about this more online. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all for being here as well.
Thank you.
Our roundtable discussion with Mike Pence will continue. You can watch that extended version online at kcci.com or on our mobile app. Thanks for joining us for Coffee with the Candidates. Have a great day.